All right, friends, welcome back into a kind of a melancholy Suns today. My name's Adam Brian W. Peterson with me again, and we're going to break down the post-mortem, as we called it, for UCF's loss at home against Kansas 27-20. First off, if you're listening, thanks for doing that. Make sure you subscribe. If this is audio, video for you, subscribe. Make sure you get all the stuff that we do. We greatly appreciate it. Brian and I are going to sit back here tonight and kind of recap a little bit about what happened at the Kansas game on Saturday. Brian, 27-20 was the final. First off, podcast ground rules. Brian was sent to the penalty box this week. And he has been told if he uses the phrase "to your point" for every time he says "to your point," he owes the audience 10 push-ups. So
you brought it up. I was mentally in my head preparing myself to not make said comment.
Some were asking for a shot collar. We feel like that's unnecessary around here.
It could be necessary. We'll see how this pod goes.
All right. Well, right now it feels unnecessary, but that's the ground rule. Brian W. Peterson vows to not say "to your point," Brian, but to your point about how you were feeling before the show started. Man, this one feels tough because you know what? We were in this game. We were winning this game at halftime. The first two quarters of this game looked like a UCF team that you felt like, hey, this team can compete. This team is way different than what we saw against Kansas State. And I guess that's where I'll start, and I'll let you kind of tag in your thoughts. I think for me, the frustration was Kansas State was a game where you start off slow and all of a sudden, you know, all the things about maybe us being a little bit ahead of our skis kind of come to fruition, right? You're like, maybe we weren't as good as we thought at 3-0. You know, Kansas State humbled us a little bit. They were the better team that day. A lot of things took place. Okay, this is going to be, I think we said last week, this is going to be a rebuild. This may be slower than we thought. Everybody just stay the course. And so that was kind of my mindset going in, right? And then all of a sudden, we're in this thing we're winning this thing in the first half. Now, a couple of things I didn't love, but we are on the plus side of the scoreboard as we get into halftime, Brian. And that's what makes this one more frustrating is we didn't get outclassed. We didn't get blown off the field. This was one where we could have won this game. This was a winnable game for UCF. It was in their grasp, within their reach, and they just kind of gave it away. And this is the frustrating one. As much as Kansas State was annoying and we lost that game, you kind of tipped your cap and said, okay, they probably a little better than us. Like they played better than us. But I don't want to take anything away from Kansas, but felt like not only did Kansas play better than us, we also didn't do anything to help ourselves. Yeah. And so that's why this one is more frustrating, Brian, is we were in this thing. And this is one where, you know, you could have come up with a victory. And this one hurts even more maybe than Kansas State did because I felt like it was right there. And then UCF just somehow let go of the rope. And before you knew it, Kansas is dancing all over the field.
So we're discussing this. It's been about a little shy of 24 hours since the game started, I guess. Would have been 24 hours just about kickoff this time yesterday. And I keep going back and forth on the question of, are we a good football team? No, I don't think we are. But then on the same, you know, on the opposite side of that coin, I keep saying we were expecting this. So should I be surprised? Well, no. And I think that part of the problem is that maybe we got a little bit of ahead of ourselves. We've talked about it in the past. You know, North Carolina turning out to be a complete dumpster fire in Chapel Hill, and a lot of folks kind of hung their hat on that win and said, "Look, you know, maybe we can do something with this season. We're going to be maybe perhaps a little more competitive than we really are seeing now that we can be, just because of that game." And I think that we need to face facts. You know, we've said it ad nauseum, this is a rebuilding year, right? This is Scott Frost year 0. We have a lot of talent, but a lot of that talent is unproven. And we keep finding ways to shoot ourselves in the foot game after game now that we've entered conference play. At K-State, it was the story of offsides, right? The defensive line is, finding ways to continue to give K-State drives by jumping offsides. It seemed like it was happening on every drive at a certain point. This game, a similar problem where the offense comes out in the third quarter, and after having a pretty good first half, I mean, we were leading at the half, and if you had told me that was going to happen, I'd have been thrilled with that. Come out in the third quarter, the offense completely collapses, And that is stifled by the fact that we've got false start penalty after false start penalty after false start penalty. So we're a young, inexperienced team, not doing ourselves any favors. And we're allowing teams like Kansas, which, like you said, felt like it was a game that we could have won. I mean, we were in that game up until the last, 20 seconds of the game when K-State Kansas, finally got the ball back and was able to take a knee. We had several drives where we had the chance to score the tying touchdown and just simply could not produce. And we need to remember that this is a rebuilding year, right? We have to keep telling ourselves that. And again, what I was saying before, I keep going back and forth. I'm like the rest of the UCF fans, right? I'm tired of losing, right? We've gone through several years of the Gus bus now where things just were disappointing after disappointing season. And as much as we told ourselves this is going to be a rebuilding year and we got to stick through it and we're going to have growing pains, and even Scott Frost alluded to it during his presser, is that this feels like a 2016 type situation where we've got talent, but we're just not finding ways to win these games. From a UCF fan perspective, it's tough, right? You don't want to rectify in your mind the fact that we're starting from scratch again, right? Houston is building off of, the success that they've had coming into the Big 12. They're probably a little bit ahead of us. Cincinnati, obviously, as we have seen this season, going to be a problem next week on the road. They're having success. BYU is BYU, and they're probably the strongest of the new four teams coming into the conference. But as a UCF fan, it's getting exhausting, but we're just going to have to stick through it while we get through these growing pains and allow this coaching staff to finally get some pieces in place that we obviously don't have.
Again, that's what makes us hard, is we could have won this game, right? That this game was winnable for UCF. And while I understand there are going to be games this year that we're probably not going to be in contention to win, and they're going to be tougher games, and maybe this week against Cincinnati will be one of those examples. This was one that was gettable. And to hear Coach Frost afterwards basically kind of say, yeah, you know what, we're too talented to lose a game like this. I think that's the problem is we play well enough at times to win, and then we do the incredibly dumb stuff for a couple plays, and we can't overcome that. We're not a good enough team to come past that right now. And that's what feels like this one is a lost opportunity, and that it was right there within our grasp. All we had to do was continue to find ways to be effective on the offensive side of the ball, Brad. This is a gross stat. I don't know if you're feeling okay. I'm not sure what you have for dinner. Don't know if you're feeling queasy right now, so I apologize if you are. Gross stat incoming. Third quarter, UCF ran 12 plays.
I know
negative 1 yards in the third quarter. But like I had to look at it twice. I was like, is that 2 dashes? Because usually it's like the play and then the dash. It was like is that 12 plays and negative 1 yards in the third quarter, Brian. And credit to Andy Mitz, who we had on from the Rock Jock podcast. He was on the live show on Thursday with us, and he told us that Kansas is good at halftime adjustments. So the game plan is get up on Kansas early and hope that you can prepare and withstand the halftime adjustment. I don't know what Kansas did in that halftime. I don't know what UCF did in that halftime, Brian, but something was absolutely different in that third quarter. Frost chalked it up to Kansas played harder. They started playing tougher. But the play call, and here's the thing, man, it was like the same thing over and over again. It was run up the middle, brick wall, loss of 1, run up the middle, brick wall, no gain, pass to the sideline to a tight end who probably only has one arm, incomplete, get the punt team out there. It was the same stuff over and over. And at some point I kind of said to myself, does Frost not trust this offense? Does he not trust this team to be able to do certain things? In the first half, it looked like he did, but somehow in the second half, it looked like he shrunk the playbook down and just said, we're going to keep doing these things that worked in the first half. Kansas obviously said, hey, we know what you're doing now. We're going to try to react and counter to that. And UCF had no answers, whether that was they weren't prepared, whether that was they don't feel like they have the horses, the athletes to combat that. But Kansas basically was like, here's what we're going to do. Go ahead, UCF, do something different. And for whatever reason, Brian, Scott Frost and the offensive staff kind of refused to do so. And then penalties start, mistakes start, guys aren't reaching for footballs anymore. Dylan Wade gave it his all, only had one arm, right? I mean, he's going for a pass, and he was yelling at Taven because he basically can't lift the other arm. Like it just turned into a complete just a complete disaster in that third quarter. And that's what was frustrating is we were in this game. This was one that you could have won and maybe, I don't want to say sped up, but you maybe could have moved that little rebuild process forward, giving your team some juice going into a tough game against Cincinnati. And it just feels like this is going to be one where we're going to look back and go, this was an opportunity for UCF to potentially do something in the Big 12, which is what I screamed about last week. I just want us to do something in the Big 12. I want us to not be the laughing stock of the Big 12. And here we are with a Kansas team. We're moving, we're doing what we need to do. And all of a sudden we just come out and act like the little Giants movie football team in the third quarter and we can't do anything.
If you had told me that we were going to go into halftime with a lead and we were running the ball successfully in the first half of the game, I'd have said, we're going to win this game, right? You play the game for 60 minutes. So you're coming out in the first 30 minutes and being ahead is not enough. But all things were going well. We were running the ball, something that we have not seen all season long. Miles was tearing it up. He was getting, he was gashing the Kansas defense in that first half. And then, like you said, just a brick wall comes at us in the second half. And I think that's a combination of a couple different things. One, it's the fact that we don't have the depth that we need to have to play Power 4 football yet. And that's a combination of being, the newcomer as far as teams in the Big 12, right? Kansas or Cincinnati, BYU and Houston all have that same problem, but they've probably all got a lot more money than we do. So they've got NIL dollars that they can play with a little easier than we can. So we don't have the depth. And we're banged up right now, right? We've got a lot of problems on O-line, which we've talked about in the past. And I think that we gotten to the point where our friends Bailey and Christian on the Pegasus podcast had mentioned during one of their shows that we were going to come to a point in the season where the offensive line, with its struggles, was going to be the reason that we lost the game, whether it was because they couldn't stop they couldn't pass block or they couldn't run block or both. And I think we saw that tonight at the half-yard line when we needed the touchdown to tie the game. You could not rely on that offensive line to get enough push to get you half a yard into the end zone. And they had multiple tries to do it. And I think that Christian and Bailey were spot on. And it's only going to get worse from here, right? As we're going to face some of these other teams that are going to have bigger offensive lines. I'm looking at Texas Tech. That is going to be a slaughter waiting to happen because they're going to push us around all day. So we don't have the depth. We don't have some of the talent. And this is just a situation that Scott Frost, I think he understands that. I think he knows that he has limited players that can get out there with experience and make some of these plays happen when crunch time really comes around and you need to make a play. I think that he understands that. I've seen a lot of folks criticizing the play calling in the end of the game there as we needed that touchdown to tie the game. It's easy for us to sit here and question things the day after or, as we're watching from the stands, but I didn't necessarily have a problem with trying to push the ball at the half-yard line. He obviously does not trust the receivers or the running backs or whatever it is. He said in his presser, I wanted to get the ball to Miles Montgomery because I trust him. And that tells me that Miles is his go-to guy, not Dwayne Thomas, not some of our receivers who are young guys or, tight ends who are banged up and only have one arm. So, yeah, I think there's a factor of it's not the play calling that's the problem. It's the tools that are in the toolbox at the moment that are either banged up or inexperienced enough for him to rely on. And let's not forget, we're not playing Temple anymore. This is Kansas football, right? These are offensive and defensive lines that they're big boys up front. And UCF has always gotten by with speedy, talented guys on the field. And when you need that half-yard line, who you're going to rely on. It's a tough situation for UCF to be in. It's part of that growing process, and we're just going to have to move on to the next game. As much as it's painful to walk away from this game, knowing that you had a chance to win it.
My only contention with what Frost said post game about Miles being his guy He only gave the ball to Miles one time at that 3-play sequence.
Yeah.
It was Cam Fancher, tush push that was
Yeah.
dreadful. Miles up the middle for nothing, and then Cam Fancher obviously on that what was a quarterback keeper. If you go back, and here's the challenge, man, you go back and watch that play. I went back and watched because from where I was sitting in the stadium, it was hard to see the replay. I couldn't tell if Cam Fancher got in or not. Right. I know. Luckily, UCF had like 95 guys wearing yellow shirts blocking all the camera angles.
It was a terrible replay. Oh my God.
Great job, UCF athletics on that one. But I went back to watch, like, hey, did he get in? Because I just couldn't see when I was at the game. And there's a tight end, I won't name him, but he was number 84, who clearly whiffs on a block, right? And you can watch that back and see the little small execution issues, to your point, where UCF just isn't as dialed in on some of those details when they need to be to make plays. And that's the tough part. Is there are times where we have the talent where you go, wow, like this, all right, we can do this. Yeah. And then they do the thing where you're like, what are we doing here? And so it's weird, because I feel like I'm driving a car, right? We all live in Florida, right? We've all been in traffic jams. If you're in actual South Florida, Brian, like you are at times, you've been in traffic jams. Orlando, you're on I-4, you're going 50 miles an hour, you're feeling good, and all of a sudden you slow down to a crawl and you're going 10. That's what UCF feels like right now. Is like we're hey, here we go. Hey, we can't be stopped. Hey, we got quick play, long run. This, and all of a sudden, screeching halt, and our car's going nowhere on the highway. And then all of a sudden, things in the car stop working. The turn signal's not turning on. The windshield wipers not work. And that was the 4th down play against Kansas, where again, did Cam Fancher get in? Here's the other thing. I mean, to your point, we could Monday. Oh, it's a to your point reference for me. Sorry, we could Monday morning quarterback. That's all you want. But Cam Fancher, coming off of an undisclosed injury of unknown severity, he gets 2 cracks at trying to get the ball in. Like, do you want to go to a bigger back there, right? Mm-hmm. You and I were talking pregame. You actually held up a picture of a player and said, "Who the hell is this?" And it was A.G. Adai, who was a freshman running back, a bigger dude. Do you do something on the outside, the perimeter? Andrew Cherico asked for us that after the game, and he was like, "Yeah, maybe I should get more creative there." Right? It's frustrating, because this one was there for us to take. This one was there for us to at least maybe hit the gas a little bit on the rebuild. But I want to stick on the Frost angle for a second, Brian, because if you were wondering how long it would take for folks to start criticizing the new Scott Frost era, 5 games is your answer. Because to your point, play calling, which I do think is somewhat fair, right? I do think there are some head scratching calls where you go, what are we doing here, Brian? But 5 games in, there's already a little Frost criticism. What are we doing? This is what happened in Nebraska. Are we sure this is the right guy?
Honeymoon's wearing off.
Yeah. Way to go, TikTok Terry. Like, all that's coming out, Brian. Where are you at with the Frost minor, as it were? I mean, and everything in social media feels like it's huge, but the reality is it's like 5 people. But still, where are you at with the minor group of people who are already kind of questioning whether or not Frost is the right fit for this offense?
I don't agree with it. I mean, I can see I think a lot of that is driven by immediate frustration of us losing a game that we could have perhaps won, right? And I would go back to everything that I just said, which is, okay, you want to question the play calling. A lot of people were questioning the play calling at the very end of the game. Should he have gone on the outside? Why did he try to rush Cam twice? Why did he only get the ball to Montgomery once? Why didn't he try something different? I'll take you back to what I just said 5 minutes ago. I think he is limited as to what he has to work with, right? These players are young. They're not necessarily the guys that perhaps he would have recruited out of high school and been able to build this team the way he wanted to. So he's limited as to what he can do. Yes, in hindsight's always 20/20. And he says, look, maybe I should have gotten more creative. But he said in the presser, I thought we could have gotten half a yard. Football is a game of inches, right? Sure, we understand this. It's a game of momentum. When the offense comes out and shoots themselves in the foot in the 3rd quarter and produces -1 yard for an entire quarter with multiple possessions, you can't put that on the coach necessarily. That's where the team has to execute. And I'm not going to put this all on the offense. Like I said, we're banged up in a lot of ways, and something that we haven't talked about yet, which I want to bring up, is the fact that we lost Taven Jackson again in the 3rd quarter. He takes a massive sack, fumbles the football. They score the touchdown to go ahead at that point, and the game completely snowballs for us at that point. And on top of that, let's just assume that obviously that played out the way it did, so we know that happens. Jacurri is banged up as well. So if we're in a situation where we're at a goal line where we need to punch it in, we've got 3 downs. If Jakuri is healthy, does that change the game in any way? Right. So going back to this depth problem that we have, this injury problem bug that we have at the moment, you're going to tell me that if instead of playing Cam, we were able to rely on Jakuri at the half-yard line, that we're not able to punch it in and tie the game up? I find that hard to believe. So I'm not necessarily ready to put this all on Scott Frost and the coaching staff and say this is their fault. Nebraska fans were right. He loses 1-score games. No. If this was Gus, what do you want? I mean, if this was Gus, he would have been running a jet sweep from the 5-yard line, taking it from the shotgun and trying to run it end around in. And that's not going to work either. So I'll take the goal line stand that Frost, came up with and tried to punch it in 3 times all day, knowing that we do have the talent. It's just either banged up or too young to find a way to win, these games that are going to be tough with big 12 opponents.
I'll get back to the injuries in a second. I want to stick on the Frost thing for one second. I think 2 things are interesting. One, I tried to go back as quickly as I could. Obviously, you and I both were at the game. We drove home on Sunday, right? So we're recording this later at night and trying to figure out what day of the week it is and see our families and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But Frost said something interesting post-game that I haven't heard all of it, and I meant to text our good buddy Trace Choco and see if he recalls anything. I don't recall Frost talking a lot about the specifics of his first tenure at UCF, right? He references being here. He references my second time when I was here before, yada, yada, yada. In the post-game presser, he went out of his way to say, this reminds me a lot of 2016. When we lost a close one to Maryland, when we lost a close one to Temple. And I haven't heard him be that specific about his first tenure here. And part of me wonders if he's not just trying to tell the fan base, like, calm down. Like, this has happened before. This is reminiscent of kind of where we were. And so this is how I feel about this, and trying to get everyone back in that mind frame of like, let me do my thing this year. It's not going to be pretty, but it's going to get better in future years. I haven't seen him do that yet. And I'm curious if there was a strategy behind that, because as you and I both know, Brian, this isn't 2016, 2017 anymore. Kids aren't going to schools now with the love of the school and the love of the game, right? They're going out with the love of the paycheck. So, and this isn't the American Conference either, by the way. So much different sense. I also think some of the Frost criticism, well, you can talk about play calling, and reasonable people can disagree whether or not he should do different things differently, right? Some might look at it and say, hey, that's all he's got to work with, like you said. So do what you can do. Some might say, hey, try something different. Like, why are you staying so stubborn? We can disagree on that. I think a lot of the problem, though, is it's not so much that people are mad at Frost. They're frustrated at the program. Like, this season is obviously one line item in the entirety of this last 4 or 5 year stretch for UCF, right? And I think, games like you lose against Kansas, in a vacuum, it's one game in a season. You're 3-2. You got a lot of football in front of you. A lot of stuff can happen, right? But in the bigger picture of the last 2 years of the Big 12 and where people think the program is at, where they think the football sort of universe is going and where UCF's not, I think that's where things get a little bit conflated, right? So I think you have to separate out. Like, there are people, and I'll put my hand up among them, who are frustrated at the trajectory of our football program over the past couple of seasons. It is nowhere near what I think I want it to be. I think you're in the same boat I'm in, right? We are frustrated with where the program is at. We thought Scott could come in, and we think he still can, I think, take us to different points. It's just not happening as quickly as we want. But I think you have to separate those two things out. I think you can be frustrated with the last couple of years of UCF football and going, what are we doing? We're an afterthought. There's no juice. This is ridiculous. But also look at Scott Frost differently and say, okay, he didn't coach a good game this time out, but it'll get better. But I think a lot of that stuff's getting mixed together, Brian, which I think is making things messy, because you're mad at the 3-year stretch that UCF football has been. And so with every cut, if you will, it feels worse and worse and worse, even though in a vacuum, again, it's one game. UCF's 3-2, a lot of football left in front of them.
There's a bunch of different things that are mixing here together. Like you said, UCF fans are tired of losing, right? We went 4-8 last season. We've gone 2 years in a row where we haven't won a game in October. Those 5-game losing stretches.
We're now really 5-15 in the Big 12.
We are 5-15 in conference play in the Big 12. Absolutely frustrating for a UCF fan base that is used to success in the past decade or two now, right? but you have to keep things in perspective, right? When Gus left us, we hit the reset button. And we need to remember that. Those years that Gus was here and we lost 5 games in a row, for each of those 2 years we were in the Big 12, they don't count, right? That doesn't mean anything anymore for where we're at today. We had to come in and build a completely new, well, almost completely new roster and a new coaching staff. And we're going to have those growing pains. Doesn't make it any easier for us as fans to sit here and rationally say, you know what, I get that. I won't be upset about it, but it does. It hurts. Like you said, we're tired of losing. And I think a lot of that emotion is mixing together with today's fact that we could have, we had another chance to win these games, could have won, eked something out here, made a little bit of noise, put some building blocks down against the Kansas team with Jalen Daniels, who's a great quarterback. And we haven't even talked about the defense yet. I'm sure we'll get to them. They played a good game, but it's tough to rationalize. That's why they call us fans, right? We're fanatics. We want, especially in today's day and age of I want, now, and 2-day delivery and Amazon and all that stuff. It's tough to wait. I think the other frustrating thing is it's tough to watch Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU have some relative success over where we have been so far in these first couple of years in the Big 12. Yeah. But I think over time that will even out. I mean, prove me wrong in a decade from now, but I think that I would rather be a UCF fan and have to take my lumps now and see where things go down the road. Because I think we do have success. I think it's coming in the future. We've been here before. We've been winless. We've come out of these slumps before. It's just going to take some time.
I think the only thing that gives me a little bit of solace, Brian, is that the other schools, at least that I'm aware of, and I'm sure I don't have the stats in front of me for every school in FBS, that have gone through roster turnover at the depth that UCF has. 2 that come to mind that are always in the media are North Carolina and West Virginia, both of whom are struggling right now as well. Both of whom I think have losing records. Although North Carolina maybe even at this point, but they got blasted by Clemson, right?
Clemson, yeah.
Both of whom are struggling as well. And here's UCF at 3-2, appears to be at least on the right track. Where I don't know how the other schools feel. So that's the only solace I take is not to your point, because I won't say that.
Almost.
But as you said earlier, the way that you think about this team being put together, it's unorthodox, it's unprecedented, because in 2025 of college football, this is just what you have to do. And you're seeing the sample size of the schools that had to go to that depth and kind of where they are and how long it takes for them to rebuild. I think the UCF fan out there goes, woe is me, here we go again, because we thought we had a squad in 23, it didn't work out, and Gus went into the portal and got Cage, and that didn't work out. Like, it feels like every year we're trying something new, air quotes, and it doesn't work, it backfires. And the new one was, well, Scott Frost is going to be here to save the day. And even though the rationality of it all, to your point, damn it, I said it, you go, hey, we're a new team, we're rebuilding, that still you know that in your mind, you still get frustrated when you don't beat a Kansas State team, right?
Yeah.
When you don't beat a Kansas team, right? So you said it earlier, it's the yin and yang of this. It's the yin of like normal brain thinking tells you like, we're not gonna be very good this year. Most people are out there, we're in the 5 to 6 to 7 win range for UCF this year, right? They're at 3 right now. They're at 3 right now, right? So for a lot of people who thought that, they're halfway home to that mark, and so it's just interesting the way that all worked out. But I do think there has to be a little bit of the parsing here of like, hey, you're mad at UCF and where we're at and how things are there, and the line forms behind me, right? Like, I'm with you on that one. Is one loss just a microcosm of that? Does that mean it's going to get worse or it's going to be completely downhill from here? Maybe, I don't know, but I think Scott should get a little bit more time to see if he can right the ship. So I understand if you're mad that he called a crappy game quarters 3 and 4 and didn't adjust, and Kansas seemed to have everything they wanted in front of them. I get if you're mad at that. Actually, what else I'm low key kind of mad about, Brian, is in his post-game presser. Forget who asked the question, so I apologize if it's Trace, because he'll be mad at me if it was him.
He'll be mad at you. Yep,
absolutely. I know, so I apologize. I don't think it was, though. Someone asked him a question about like, hey, what happened there offensively, yada yada, or how did this change on you? And he talked about the offense, and he goes, but boy, man, it'd have been great if that defense, if we could have just gotten, one stop going in there, and we could have held them. And I want to be like, this is not the time to like down talk the defense. Like, yes, he's not wrong. It would have been great to have gotten. I think he's referring to one of the drives in the first half, right, but in the second quarter there, where Kansas scored a touchdown. Yes, it would have been great to have kept them out of the end zone. But to have an offense that put up, let me check this again, -1 yards in the third quarter. I don't necessarily know. I want you at the podium telling me, hey, it would have been great if the defense could have held them just a little bit more for us, right? Or, hey, Scott, it would have been better if we could have just gotten maybe a positive yardage amount in that third quarter.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because I don't recall that comment from the post-game presser. I believe that he said it. I only listened to it once while I was in the car, so forgive me if I missed a piece of it. But I felt like, for the most part, he relied on the fact that he said that the offense was not clicking enough in the second half, and he said those are things that, if you want to win these games, you have to be able to do that. Going back to the defense, I thought they played a heck of a game. We knew coming in that Jalen Daniels is a prolific quarterback, both with his arms and his feet. And one of the other pieces of information that speaking of defense, that Scott dropped on us, is that Horace Lockett is going to be out for the season with a torn pectoral that required surgery. So even with, Horace Lockett out, we were able to find a way to keep Kansas to less than 30 points, something that other teams haven't been able to do so far this season. And we were able to contain Jalen Daniels from a running perspective. I think he had less than 30 yards running on the day.
30 yards total, correct.
Yeah, 30 yards total. So, that's absolutely fantastic. If you had told me that we were going to come into this game, we were going to hold Jalen Daniels to, 30 yards running, and we were going to keep them to their lowest scoring game of the season, I would have said the defense is going to play a heck of a game in order to do that. And I think that they did. And so I don't know that if you're Frost, you can really, yes, as a head coach, of course, you're always going to say, look, I want one more stop, right? It would have been great if we got to stop there, because, in the moment, the momentum was swinging to their side, and it would have been great to get a stop there and get the ball back. And maybe the game would have turned out differently. Perhaps that was the context that he was going for. I don't know, but I don't think you can certainly put this on defense. This was, it was 100% a disillusion of the offense that occurred in the second half that led to the game being what it was.
Jalen Daniels had 265 total offensive yards. For context, he had 500 against Cincinnati. So to your earlier statement, not to your point, of course, there was certainly a difference in the way he was defended there. Two other random notes I took down that I want to throw out there for the audience. One, I got tasked on Twitter with this, and so I am here, hat in hand, although I'm not taking my hat off because my hair is not looking great right now. Mea culpa. Miles Montgomery, great game.
Had a great game.
22 carries, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's the game I think that we were all thinking Miles would have more consistently throughout the season. And again, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. I'm not blaming Miles Montgomery for any lack of production. I think the offensive line struggles. I think the revolving door quarterback. I just think some of the way the teams are defending UCF and daring them to throw the football, which appears to be something that we're reluctant to do at times, I think is factored into it. But he broke through, had a fantastic game again. 5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, 116 yards on the ground for Miles. Second point, Brian, the defensive line. Those guys fight hard, man. Those guys are in there fighting hard. But my only problem is that they're going to get some big dudes. Like, there are some times they get thrown around a little bit. Now, to their credit, they're fighting hard. They're making plays. Like, you see guys like Sincere Edwards and Nigel Kelly, Malachi Lawrence had a big stop. Like, you see them flash at times and fight through that. I just wonder how long that can keep going, because I think those guys are fighting their ass off to try to get stops and make plays, but they're going against some big boys. And there are times where they got manhandled on certain plays. And I suppose that happens to every defense, but that was my other note I took down, was like, man, these guys are fighting hard.
Yeah.
We're in game 5. There's still 7 of these bad boys to go. Can they keep this up? You talked about their injuries and the depth earlier. Losing Horace Lockett obviously loses a big body up front. I think we were talking last week about John Walker. I was trying to watch more of the line play just so I could understand better what's happening. I saw him get double and triple team a few different times. Like, so I saw him either it was just the scheme they were running, or he was a focal point. I don't know, but
they respect him when he's on the field. Yeah,
those guys fight, Brian. But like, man, like they're going to get some big boys, and I wonder. Put this one away for a rainy day. Like, how much longer can they keep this fight up? They play hard, man, but like at some point, depth is depth, stamina is stamina, and being tired is being tired.
And it's only going to get harder from here. I mean, we're going to have to go to Cincinnati. We're going to have to play BYU on the road. We're going to have to play Texas Tech on the road. By the way, if the name Lee Hunter sounds familiar, he's going to be licking his chops trying to get it. Whoever's
God, he's going to be in the backfield all day. Unbelievable.
I don't know if we might be down to Davi at that point at quarterback.
We might start him at running back. He'll be in the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Frost might need to suit up. He might need to get in there and play some snaps at quarterback because it is only going to get harder with some of these lines that we are going to have to face. The big boys are coming. We have seen some of the big guys with K-State and Kansas. They're going to get bigger as we get closer to the end of the season. But it was interesting. One of the players that came out in the post-game presser was Miles Montgomery. And though he did not really say much in his answers to a lot of the media, they ask, oh, what are your thoughts on this play? Or how do you think this developed? Or walk me through this. And he was just like, I got to go watch the tape. I don't know. I got to go watch the tape. One of the things that he did say was that, they rely on that defense to get stops when they know that, they're going to go out and they're going to make their plays and they're going to get stops. So from an offensive player standpoint, Miles sounded like he had absolute confidence in the defense to go out and play, with a full head of steam and go out there and get a stop when they needed to. And we've seen that most of this season so far, 5 games in now. Curious, as you brought up, how are we going to see how this team continues to do that as they get further down the season and, injuries start to pile up and things come and go. Hopefully the defense is able to keep it together because they have been the strong part of this team so far, right? If you look at, special teams has had their moments, but I don't think that anyone's going to argue and saying that the defense has been the heart and soul of this team so far, right? They play with the most energy. They come out, they produce, they get stops most of the time when they need to. It's still a game of football and there are talented players on both sides. But the defense, if they can keep us in these games, we have a chance to win, which is what we had on Saturday.
I think it was in one of the preseason shows that we did, Brian. The stat I found that I think was most interesting is Scott Frost, as a play caller in his career, is about a 28 point per game average scorer. Look at where UCF's at so far. Game 1, we only put up 17. Game 2 in North Carolina A&T, do what you want to do with that. North Carolina, we put up 34. Last 2 games, we only get to 20, right? If 28 is kind of his high watermark and kind of where he's been historically, we're underperforming in terms of what Scott Frost has historically done in his career. Had some good teams here at UCF, had some okay teams in Nebraska offensively early on. Obviously, things got weird towards the end there, but that's kind of where Frost's average is at, and we're not there right now. And I don't know how many games you're going to win in the Big 12 when you can only put 20 points on the board, right? Like, that's going to task your defense with playing lights out week in and week out. And I don't think giving up 27 points in a game is something where you go, man, our defense is terrible. Like, it's a fair amount. It is a respectable amount of points, I think, to give up defensively, but the offense obviously just can't bring it along. But I want to bring up the last topic we can talk about on this particular program, Brian. It's going to be the most sensitive. So you out there, if you're listening, you're in your car, you're mowing your lawn, you're on your treadmill, whatever, trigger warning in advance at this topic, Brian. We got to talk about the fans because you were at the stadium on Saturday night, as I was. Yes, there was a little rainstorm end of the second quarter. Well, not little. It was a good downpour, but it was a 5-10 minute downpour. It got a little better.
It wasn't even heavy rain.
Another 10-minute light downpour after that, right? So there was some downpour. I get it. It was a night game, 7:30. I get it. Florida State, Miami was on. Perhaps that had some people's eyes somewhere else. I get it. But a couple things, Brian. One, UCF can tell me all they want how many people were at the game. They announced 43,229. I don't know about all that. 2, a lot of Kansas fans, man. So you and I sat on opposite sides for this game, so I could see the Cabana side very clearly. A lot of blue and red all up in the Cabana. A lot of blue and red in the Cabana. A lot of blue and red up in the section above the band. which is normally not where the visiting section sits. And those rainstorms hit, Brian, and the exits just opened up and people just started leaving the student section. I don't think particularly on the north end zone side was full at all the entire game. A lot of folks, students and other, left at halftime. So here we are as a fan base, and we complain about, like, why aren't we getting this and why aren't we getting that, and we deserve this, and youngest alumni base, and yada yada yada. But again, the fickle nature of our fan base kind of shows up. And to be fair, no, not a single one of the people in the audience made a tackle, right?
Correct.
Nobody caught a pass. Nobody was going to block anybody. I get all that stuff, but I found it really interesting that for a night game, the first ever Saturday Big 12 night game, and yes, the weather was a little bit funky all day long, but it was not the crowd I think I was expecting, and I was really surprised to see how many people emptied out at halftime with UCF with a lead and never came back. And obviously, you know what happens the rest of the game.
I need to be careful here because this is
careful alert.
I don't typically buy into the the arguments on social media that folks get into. Oh, the fans left, or the student section, they need to be held accountable and they can't leave at halftime, and yada yada yada. Okay, whatever. Argue, with a brick wall about your opinion on that. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day what's going on in the field. However, I cannot let this week go without saying something. I was absolutely floored with the amount of fans that decided to turn tail and leave at halftime. Now, like you said, perhaps people were scared off by the rain. Don't give me that crap. It was a little bit of rain. It rained for like 10 or 15 minutes. Right at halftime, you go inside or you go down to the concourse, you go to the bathroom, you get a drink, and by the time the rain is stopped, it's start for the third quarter. So don't give me that. And to their credit, I thought the students were the ones that hung around for this game, right? They're always getting blasted on social media. Oh, the students left. They should if they want to come back the next game, they need to stay for the full game this game. They were the ones that were in their seats for this entire game up until the last minute. I was on the Cabana side, as you said, and yes, there was a decent amount of Jayhawk fans that were in the stadium. Credit to them for traveling well. But I'm looking at the Tower Club side. Those seats were completely empty. Completely empty. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, right? We're a young team in the Big 12. It's all about me, now. I want success. What have you done for me lately? Everybody wants to complain that we didn't win this game. All you needed was 1 yard, Scott Frost. How did you not draw up a play to go on the outside? How did you keep trying to run it, up the middle? How did you only produce 1 yard of offense in the third quarter? How did you not get a stop when it mattered? I don't want to hear complaints from anybody if you left that stadium for our home conference opener on a Saturday night primetime game televised on ESPN2 at halftime while we were winning. We weren't getting blown out. It wasn't like it was a 4-score game in Kansas's favor and we were doing nothing. We had a hell of a first half. We're winning the game, and a little bit of rain comes and somebody decides, I want to go watch the Miami-Florida State game. Give me a break. UCF is not going to be considered serious. We are going to continue to be seen as a upper G5 program, the way that we're perceived by most national media people out there, until our fans can learn to keep their asses in their seats, even when the going gets tough. And I need to be careful because I know a lot of people get real upset, real sensitive about it, like, oh, we're not winning, I'm not going to stay for the game. You cannot expect, as I said before, football is a game of inches, okay? How many goal line stands have I watched UCF win at the last minute in order to save their season? Houston a couple times. Back in our American Conference days, we were able to get goal line stands, stop Houston from getting in the end zone, go on to have successful seasons, okay? The war on I-4. Do you think that the war on I-4 for 2017 ends the way it does if the crowd leaves at halftime? No, absolutely not. These players and coaches feed off of that energy. And the bounce house has not been what it once was. And I hate to break it to everybody, that's not because of the team that's on the field. It's because of the fans that are in the stands or not in the stands. That's where that energy comes from. And I was really disappointed to see the amount of people that vacated, even in the middle of the third quarter when Kansas got the ball back after a crucial drive where we ended up giving the ball back to Kansas. There was still almost 2 minutes on the clock, and we had several timeouts. People were leaving. I said, this game is not over. And it didn't end on that. We got another possession, and that's when that goal line drive came. And you have to wonder if things would have been a little bit different had we had a full stadium of people chanting for UCF and trying to get those players energized. And you never know. It's a game of momentum. I was just disappointed with where we were and as a capacity standpoint.
Yeah, it was interesting. Again, I think I understand all the reasons why the weather has not been great this season so far, right? You basically had 3 rain games and a game that basically felt like it was played on the sun. I get it, right? The weather has not been optimal in some of these games. Night game, there was a Thursday game, kids, school. I mean, there any number. Gus, killed this program, and people are still kind of getting back involved, right? All different kinds of reasons. It's just interesting that for a fan base, I think. We talk a lot about how many alumni there are in what 300,000 living alumni, whatever the number is. Brian, you probably know better than I do. It feels like there's a very fickle nature to our fan base at this point. And either you're all in and you say to yourself, okay, like I'm going to be at the game. I'm going to be all like, you kind of create the karma that you put out there, right? Like if you want to be at the game and cheering, perhaps that gets you some of the moves that you want from a reaction standpoint. It was interesting for me just to see that many people again not show up is fine. Like if you and somebody 43 was the attendance, right, when 44 is the mat, all right, fine. Like
sure.
1,000 people said, hey, not worth it, kids, sick, pneumonia, whatever, rain, I'm out. I get it, right? But people were there and then decided, okay, it's raining. It was funny where I was standing, I could see people walking out, and my 13-year-old was with me, and he was like, why are they leaving? And I was like, I don't know, man. And he was like, because if they're leaving because it's raining, they're walking in the rain right now. Like, so they're going to get as wet to their car. And I'm like, you know what, 13-year-olds, sometimes you don't just say 6, 7 all the time. You actually have a good point about something. And I appreciate that out of you, kid. But yeah, look, I just think we have to figure out a way to, as a fan base, kind of come together. And I get that it's been a rough couple of years. I get that people are mad about some of the things that they think UCF athletics has done to misstep. Terry Mahajer obviously is not somebody who's getting a ton of Christmas cards from the Knight fan base this year. I get that. You want to see wins. I get that. But it was just disappointing to see that many people just, I guess I always kind of knew that at times everybody, I guess, is in some respects fickle, Brian, right? Like there are people who are like, hey, all right, like I'm not going to waste my time on this. You're a Dolphins fan. I doubt you watched them blow that game to the Panthers on Sunday, right?
I didn't.
Like it just happens. Like, and I get that piece of it, but it's interesting that people want to lament where UCF is not at currently. But when it comes time to be a part of the solution, perhaps, and be in the stands, cheer, yell, scream, root for your team. And does that mean that Cam Fancher gets on a 4th down if 13 other people stay there? I don't know, maybe not, but it also doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt to have some other people on property and some other people looking up and players look up and stands there. All right, like they're here, like they're still ready, they're fighting for us. Let's go out and do something. I don't know if that's overblown. Maybe that's just you and I who have never done anything at that high competitive level in our lives, assuming that that players care, and we can ask a few of them perhaps. But it was just interesting to see a fan base that's always seems to be, anytime you mention something negative about UCF on Twitter, we come after you, right? Like there's, and again, maybe Twitter is a vacuum and I shouldn't count that as real life, but people attack. Oh no, how could you say that? We're not Central Florida. But then the game comes like, I'll be on my couch. Like, it's just interesting. Like they want to fight on one end, but a time comes to actually like be a part of the fight. And it just seems like sometimes people don't want to opt into that.
I assume we're preaching to the choir, right? If you're watching this show, if you're listening to the podcast, you're obviously a diehard fan because you're wasting your time listening to us jabber on about UCF football, right?
Yeah.
So if this is you, if I'm talking to you right now, you're obviously probably one of the people that was in the game the entire 60 minutes. You were there till the very end. It's perhaps the more casual fan that's showing up and deciding, oh, you know what, it looks like it might rain. Maybe I'll get ahead of it and I'll get out of here before it rains now, or I'll go catch, the Miami Florida State game. And maybe those are the fans that we saw leaving. But I mean, it was tough. It was tough to see how empty that stadium was at the start of the second half. And you got to think from a player's perspective and a coach's perspective that they see that, right? There's no way they don't see that. And they don't feel that energy drain. At some point, like you said, those, defensive players they're playing hard, they're playing fast. And eventually, you're going to get tired and you're going to lose some of that steam that you've got. And it makes it a lot easier to do that when the fans are leaving and they're not behind you and it's not loud and crowded in that stadium. I was talking to Dolly, our good friend, about this earlier today, and I posed the question to him: if this game was reversed, if this game was in Kansas and we were leading and Kansas had a chance in the second half of the fourth quarter, do you think their stadium is empty? No.
It's interesting.
There's no way. There's no way.
Go to social media. You'll find some Baylor at a home game this week against Kansas State, and there's some shots of the Baylor home crowd, and there had to be like 14 people there, right? So, again, maybe it's just this thing in college athletics these days, and maybe you and I are coming across as old guy yelling to get off my lawn at this point in time, right? I just think if we're gonna be there and say let's support the team, and we demand better, like, then be a part of that solution. Be at the stadium, cheer the team on, yell, scream. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think it'd be better. Really quickly, let's talk injuries. You brought it up earlier. Taven Jackson, I don't know if his arm fell off. It looked like it did. He was walking off the field and looked like he could not keep his arm in an upright position. It was dangling pretty bad there. I saw him go in the tent. I lost track of him after that, obviously, Brian, but he did not come back out in the field. Cam Fancher comes out on the field, obviously, at this point. So he essentially moved into QB2. I've heard behind the scenes Jakari's injury was initially, so if you look at Taven and Jakari injured same day, same game, of those two injuries, my understanding was Jakari's was worse than Taven's, hence him not even dressing and playing on Saturday night. How quickly can that injury heal? That I don't know. What's going on with Taven? We still don't know that yet. I'm going to make you another bet, Brian. Scott Frost is going to stroll the podium on Monday, and someone's going to go, coach, go over here. Coach, over here. Hey, what's going on with your quarterbacks? He's going to go, it's still TBD. I haven't talked to the trainers yet. I'll talk to the trainers tomorrow, and I'll get a bit. Like, you don't talk to the trainers every day, Scott. Come on. Like, the trainers schedule an appointment with you. Come on. Like, you know what's going on. But either way, he's not going to tell us on Monday. So is Taven injured? We'll find out when the injury report, I think, first drops. Was that a Wednesday night or Thursday night? We'll figure out who's on that report. But it's funny. My son, again, my 13-year-old, was like, Cam Fancher's in, huh? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what happens next? I was like, Davy Belfort is one play away. Davy Belfort is now, we're officially in Davy Belfort one play away territory, which is, I don't know, it's something we thought we were going to be at. So that's going to be a really interesting storyline leading up to this week, Brian, because who knows what's going on with Taven. Initially, post-game of Kansas State, what he essentially said, and I'll paraphrase, was, yeah, it hurt, but the doctor said I couldn't make it any worse. Right. So as long as I can deal with the pain, I can play. It looked like it got worse on Saturday. I don't know. And so
that
who
hit
knows?
That he took,
who knows?
That hit that he took. I mean, he was completely undefended. Somebody missed the block. They brought the blitz, and it looked like he dropped the ball before he even got hit. And I can't blame him after he took the hit that he took last week at K-State. You gotta wonder if there was some sort of mental, freeze up there, and he knew he was going to get hurt again. I think in the post-game presser, for you eagle-eyed listeners out there, I think Scott Frost mentioned that they did do an X-ray, and the X-ray was negative. So that is at least a little bit of positive.
This is why I always get weird. Negative means positive, right?
Correct.
In this
setting, it was negative for a break.
Okay.
Yes, negative is a positive.
Okay.
I know math is not your suit. We know.
It's not my thing, though. It's not my thing.
So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how what they announce as the week goes on and when the injury report comes out. But I think you're correct. I don't think we're going to know who's going to be starting at quarterback until they trot out into the field at Cincinnati. Hopefully we'll have some insight. Trace can get us some video of the players warming up and throwing some passes at practice this week, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if Cam Fancher has to be our starter for the Cincinnati game. I'm kind of in emergency mode at this point. I kind of just already assumed that we're going to lose to Cincinnati, and shame on me for thinking that.
Line open, Brian. We're 13
almost
points.
14 points. Yeah, almost a two-score dog in this game. So Vegas hasn't been wrong yet. They did have us losing both K-State and Kansas. So if take that for what it's worth. If that is the case, and this game is going to be as rough as we think it is, do we rest Taven and let Cam go out there and just see what he can do? I'd hate to see for Taven to go out there not 100% and get hurt more. Same thing with Jacuri. Do you put Davi out there and see if he's got anything that we can build off of? I don't know. Tough situation. At this point, right, we're still trying to make a bowl. I still think we're going 5-7, 6-6, perhaps still in the cards. You would expect that Oklahoma State should be a winnable game. West Virginia should be a winnable game. And then you've got to find another game to win. I don't think it's going to be Texas Tech. I don't think it's going to be BYU. Maybe Houston for the space game, if we can, find some of that razzle-dazzle space game magic. Houston looking like an okay team. They did get beaten this past week. Who did they play yesterday?
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, that's right. So yeah, it's tough to take away, much from that, because I think Texas Tech is really as good as advertised. But do you look at this in the Cincinnati game and say, look, it's on the road. We're 2-score dogs. We're beat up. Do we play conservatively and try and, not get any more injuries and get through this game and get on to West Virginia, where we can hopefully rebound and get a win? And I don't know. It's tough to say.
Well, if that's, and I don't disagree with that line of thinking, right? If that's your line of thinking, essentially UCF has to win one of Baylor, Cincinnati, or Houston, right?
Correct.
If we're assuming that West Virginia, Oklahoma are already maybe in the favorable column for UCF, right? You have to now win one of Cincinnati, Baylor, and Houston.
Correct.
So your first crack comes, and the problem with that is 2 of those are on the road. So your first crack comes at that this weekend. Obviously, again, almost a 2-touchdown dog at Cincinnati. The Miles Montgomery revenge game. Perhaps Miles Montgomery has some revenge for Cincinnati.
That'd be tasty, wouldn't it?
That would be fantastic. I don't know what to do. Again, I'll keep going back to my kid. At one point during the game, he turned around to me and he goes, "Is Cam Fancher good?" And I was like, I don't know. I actually don't know how to answer that question. Like, he had 27 plays in the first game. Didn't look great, but the offense didn't look great in those 27 plays. The offense didn't look great in the 50 plays after he left either. So I don't know. And then he came in, he looked a little rusty. He made a couple plays with his legs that kind of got the 20,000 that remained in the stadium to stand up and to be like, oh wow, okay, yeah, he's got something here. He made a Timmy McClain-esque run where he kind of ran backwards like 35 yards only to do something with it, right? Like, and so I don't know. Are we good with Cam Fancher?
I don't know. He shuffled at one point and shuffled off 2 defenders and was able to keep the drive. He had a couple of really pretty balls that he threw on third and long when I thought we were going to be in trouble, and he found a way to make those plays connect. I don't know. I mean, I've gone back and I've watched FAU football. I got my master's degree at FAU, so I do kind of follow the Owls a bit. And he obviously played for them. So I have seen him on the field, completely different scenario, right? Playing in the American versus what he's facing now. But if you look at some of the highlights from his play at FAU, he has some flashes where he looks like he's a really dynamic player. And then he has other times when not so much. So I don't really know what to expect out of him. And obviously in a UCF uniform, we've seen very limited minutes out of him, right? He played in the first quarter of the first game against Jacksonville State, and before he got hurt, he was okay. He was efficient. I don't think Scott Frost and the coaches were really breaking much out for him to razzle dazzle us with. Obviously, you can see that he can move with his feet. He can throw the ball. He did have a couple low throws in this game against Kansas. I don't know if that was the ball being wet because of the weather, or he was under duress because the offensive line was just non-existent at certain points and he was getting harassed. So I'm not really sure what to expect out of him. Plus, we don't really know the condition of his health, right? He did take that hit. He was out for several weeks, where the only report that we got was shooting pains in his back and his legs. He looked okay health-wise. Scott Frost did mention that with Jacuri being injured, that Cam was the number 2. He was taking the number 2 snaps this week. So how prepared was he for this game is tough to know. If he has a full week of practice where he's going to be anointed, the starter for this week, does that change things? we'll see. Tough to say. We'll see how the game goes on Saturday. I don't expect much, but stranger things have happened.
Well, we'll be all over it all week long. We'll have all our regular programming, Pegasus podcast, Around the Kingdom, Sons of UCF Live. We'll have some reports from campus as we meet with coaches, players, and assistant coaches this week. So all that stuff will be found on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel, also on your audio feed, wherever you do your podcast stuff as well. Post game at 12 o'clock kickoff Saturday, Brian. So post game, Bailey and Christian will be live literally seconds after the game ends to break it all down and give you their thoughts as well. Hopefully, we're talking about a win. Who knows? But keep it locked here all week. We'll try to keep you updated as best we can on what we know, what we hear. Again, we're not going to find out about quarterback on Monday. You know what I just find funny, Brian? Like when Frost says I haven't talked to the trainer yet. Like I just have it like Frost walk around. Like anyone see the trainer? I can't find the trainer. Like he can't. He doesn't know where the trainer's at. Like
I have a question for him. Where is he?
He can't just call the trainer whenever he wants to go. Hi, it's Scott Frost. I have sorry, call me back tomorrow. I'm busy. Like he's gonna get an.
Isn't his office like right across the hall from the training staff office? Can he just walk across
wherever the hell
hall?
He wants it to be. I feel like he can just walk anywhere and tell anybody, hey, I need this, and they're gonna be like, oh, it's Scott Frost, I have to get that. Either way,
I can pick up my phone and get Taco Bell delivered to my front door. He can't find out where the trainer is to know what's going on with his quarterback.
Taco Bell, odd choice for you at a night, Brian, but I'm assuming it'll work out well for you as it often does. But again, thanks, Brian, for hopping in. Thanks everyone out there for listening to us, watching us on this here particular program. We'll be back again next week, hopefully talking about a UCF win, although I'm not really feeling the fuzzies in that one just yet, but maybe this week we'll change my mind. So until then, everybody, have a great week. Take care of yourselves and each other. Go Knights.
Charge on.